Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of JDM Masters, and today we are back here at Type 1 Spoon Sports Customer Workshop in Suginami. And in our earlier videos on Spoon, we saw this demo car, the FK7 Honda Civic hatchback, and we're going to be taking an in-depth look at it, so come join us. Now in Japan, the FK7 Civic was only available as a hatchback. In fact, there was no spec name. It's only called hatchback, and they have the sedan, which is also over here. But like the export spec, the FK7 is actually made in Swindon Honda Manufacturing of the UK, but it is reverse imported for the Japanese market. Now the good thing is they offer the 6-speed manual transmission, and using this as a base, we have Spoon Sports' very famous tuning concept and all the parts put in this car, and we're going to be having a look at each part and how maybe you guys overseas, or even if you're in Japan and you do own one of this, you might want to consider maybe tuning it up, and you can probably get a performance spec which is kind of similar to maybe that FK8 real Civic Type R. I'll say real, but it's that's a Type R, and this is just the normal spec. And for those of you in America, you will also have the SI, which is probably only in a sedan form, and that's actually using the same engine. So a lot of these parts can actually be used for the 1.5 liter turbo with the basic chassis setup. Now, of course, with all Spoon's traditional demo cars, astute fans of Honda and Spoon might know they typically have their very simple black and white livery, or maybe yellow, and you can still see here that it is very, very much a Spoon demo car. You have the very popular and famous SW3A wheels, which they've still kept the same design and used it even until the current cars. Black carbon fiber bonnet, and it also has a black finish on the roof. It's not real carbon fiber, but the rear tail spoiler there is real carbon fiber, and you can see it's lowered. Very, very clean looks. They also do have bumpers, but on this particular car, the demo car, it's all about what's inside and not about the exterior. So the car over here, as you can see, it's finished in traditional but simple Spoon's livery. Well, basically it's the Spoon sticker on the side, on the door, and you have a little Type 1 sticker over there. But otherwise, nothing's really much different from the normal FK7 hatchback. But the SW3A wheels, which are a signature of Spoon's image product, have been used since the EG Civic, and they've reused it each generation for a very good reason. They're extremely light for the cost performance, but also the carbon fiber bonnet, which Spoon pioneered back in the early 90s for the EG Civic, and they've still kept this part as one of the key component weight reducing parts for a front-wheel drive car that's usually front heavy. So let's take a look at this little catalog, and we're going to be looking at why you might want to consider tuning your 1.5 liter FK7. Now in Japan, it's rated, the LB15B engine is rated at 182 horsepower, but with this full Spoon parts and catalog, you can get about 275 horsepower, more importantly, over 40 kilograms of torque. Now, let's just put it in perspective. 40 kilograms of torque is the same maximum torque as an R34 GTR stock, and also various iterations of the GDB STI, and also not too much different from the Evo 10, and not trailing too far with its bigger brother, the FK7. Now, all that power from a 1.5 liter 4-cylinder engine, is that really okay? But we're going to be taking a look at the extensive also research that they've done, and that this power level is, as Spoon says, it's still reliable and it can be used on a daily basis. Now we did take a test drive, you can refer to videos here, and it's quite a shocking experience.
Alright, so we're going to pass the toll gate now. Got a little bit of space to accelerate out of the gates. First gear, whoa, that rush! It pulls really strongly. Very much like a 2-liter tuned turbocharger, something like an ambulance. I'm just going through this corner now, just feeling that strong LSD biting. It's got a bit of torque steer feeling. nothing too unmanageable. It's actually fun. It's got a lot of fun factor versus the overall stability of the FK8 Type R. Feels a lot like the older cars, like the EG or the EK. Now going on the Otome. Let's put it in third gear. Ooh, look at this rush. And it picks up speed so fast. Now growing through the gears from first, second, third, and fourth. Feels really short, almost like the Lancer Evolution's short shift rally car style, because the gear ratios are still based on the 1.5 litre stock model. The torque curve with this huge increase in power from the turbocharger, the setting of the ECU has shifted all that torque from 3,000 RPM all the way up to 6. The rush from the quick spooling turbo just makes it feel even shorter. Now when you're on full acceleration and lower gears, that torque steer that just shafts the power right through the front wheels, propelling the car forwards with an unbelievable speed. Your steering just sort of twitches, and this feels a lot like a really highly tuned car, which it is, of course, but this is Spoon's demo car, and it just has all the parts included, the KW suspension, and on the highway now, it's really not too bad with ride comfort, but still giving it a lot of feel. The tires, of course, have been fitted with high grip Potenza RE71 RS with Spoon's lightweight wheels, so a lot of lower unsprung mass, because the steering is still from the standard Civic. It's not really tuned for sporty feedback. It feels a lot lighter than the FK8.
It's got a lot of torque, and personally I didn't feel that it was actually possible to have so much a feel from such a small engine. And such as how the technology has evolved in the last 20 years. Honda is now making turbo engines using VTEC, not in the old-fashioned way. The VTEC in the newer generation engine actually works by making the 2-valve and 4-valve operation, and it changes the airflow inside to work in conjunction with the turbo. So Spoon has basically upgraded these turbocharger parts along with, interestingly, let's have a look here at the ECU, which is basically using the American company from Torrance, Hondata. Now they've come a long way. You American fans and viewers will probably know Hondata very well from their very flexible ECU tuning menus back for the B engines and the K engines, and now Spoon is officially working with them to create these programs. And it's probably because the new generation turbo engines are pretty complicated, and it's easier to partner with a very strong partner. So they've used this as the base program, and you can see here, this is the old figures. You have the FK7 standard and 249 horsepower. This catalog is old. It now achieves 275 horsepower. So what else is inside? What else do you have to make to get this kind of power? Let's have a look at the engine. So first of all, let's open the carbon fiber bonnet. Of course, it's really light. One finger goes up. Taking a close look at the fit and finish, of course, the inside replicates very much the shape of the OEM bonnet. It has all of the stays for the hoses of the washer, and a very nice Spoon emblem there, which is very important for, of course, parts bragging rights. But of course, changing the bonnet is also has the advantage of lowering the overall mass on the front wheels, which has been the objective of using such carbon parts. This, however, is not real carbon. It's just a sticker. So it's kind of like a two-piece design, which looks really weird if you don't put it. But let's have a look. Yellow engine valve cover, no horsepower gains there. That's basically just for looks. They do sell this part at $400. It's up to you to if you think it's worth it or not, along with these little nice must-have for Spoon fans: reservoir fluid catcher, billet aluminium oil filler cap, isn't it? It's nice because it's metal and it's got really classy feel, compared to the plastic ones. And so it's interesting. You've got all these three items in close proximity. Makes it good for photos, doesn't it? But anyway, that's not what we're interested in. So what do you need to do in order to get this 275 horsepower for you power-hungry Honda Civic fans? So we've made a little list here. So you have the turbocharger, which is priced in Japanese yen 250,000 yen. It's got a larger compressor and also a redesigned turbine, which matches together with the important N1 exhaust. Of course, when you do any sort of tuning, the intake and the exhaust, everything must flow properly. It has to come with the set. So this horsepower is guaranteed when you use this part. Now, interestingly, the air filter itself is just a drop-in replacement. Of course, we can't remove this here because I need screws, but I assure you it's inside. It's yellow and it's paper. It gives you a bit more flow. All right. Now, the interesting thing about this menu, as you can see here, because changing a turbocharger to increase more horsepower creates definitely more heat. And so you need to control this heat by fitting a radiator. And of course, you don't have to use Spoon's radiator, but this is their suggested one. You can actually see it here, actually. Look at that, it's all nice and shiny aluminium. Oh yeah. Of course, bigger capacity to remove all of that latent heat from the turbochargers. But the most important component is changing the clutch cover and the clutch disc. The stock clutch will not stand up to the abuse of more power. N1 Sports Muffler. Now it's interesting because the N1 Sports Muffler back in the EG and the EK Civic days was really loud. It was only meant for racing, but now they've actually put in more steel wool and it's quieter. So even with this racing style design, you can have the looks, and also it passes at least the Japanese MOT. But all this power is useless because the standard car chassis cannot handle the amount of power that's going through it. The standard, especially in Japan, the stock hatchback was just meant as a family commuter car with a little power, and that was the design concept. But to turn this into a tarmac tearing monster, now Spoon says this concept is very much like the old EG and EK Civic SIR. Now you had the EK9, the Type R, which is the top spec, but really the Type R and the SIR are really two different cars. Now a lot of Honda fans may think, oh well, I want to upgrade my SIR into a Type R, but the characteristics are actually very, very different. And that's the concept for the FK7 1.5 liter turbo. Wherever you are in the world, you have this. You can turn this into an exciting handling machine with enough power that maybe you might not actually need the full-blown Type R, because such cars may, maybe enjoy more as stock. But if you like, if you're someone that has to buy parts and tune your car, maybe this is actually a better base. Power is nothing without control, and control is responsibility of the driver and of course the tuner. So the Spoon demo car is equipped, of course, with a full coilover suspension. And what's interesting is that they used to produce it in conjunction with Showa and also other Honda OEM makers. But this time, because the FK Civics are basically, it's not a JDM car anymore, it's a European car, and they've chosen to work with KW, which is a well-known German tuner suspension. And you can see here in reference photos how it looks like, the yellow springs, and there's a full adjustment coilovers. But what's still a very Spoon flavor is the stock brake calipers on the FK7 is nowhere equipped to handle that massive power jump. And because the base model is already quite heavy, it's almost 1.4 tons with a lot of torque, Spoon have chosen to use probably their biggest calipers for sale on the street. It's 6-pot caliper, full monocoque, and that alone is 248,000 yen. But it's a massive thing. It requires its own brake pads, which are suited for this caliper. The rear ones are still the conventional size, which you can put maybe aftermarket ones. But of course, each part has been tuned for feel. And when we test drove it, the response was incredibly crisp. In fact, it was maybe a little bit too sensitive for the street. But for those of you who like that crisp response, and going this on the track would probably have not any issues with fade. Now, if you look carefully here at the calipers itself, and you can see also the brake discs here has cooling vents, even on the inside, not only on the outside. So this is a bit like the cross-flow style that Dixel also offers. The Spoon S38 wheels are extremely light. What's interesting about why Spoon chose this matte finish color, it's aluminite, and it's actually lighter than conventional paint. So just that, to shave that extra grams off of everything possible, and then you can make up for it by putting your entertainment system or your drinks or whatever, you know. So moving on to the rear, the carbon fiber rear wing, which is a good addition to the stock model, adds a little bit of a kind of a GT wing 3D-ish kind of feel. It's very nicely contoured onto the outside, and you can see very clearly that this part here is a little bit of a curvature designed to give maximum airflow for this shape. Now, what's important to note is that while they call this a hatchback, the angle of the rear windscreen is almost like a coupe, and the original FK body already has a slight ducktail coming out at the side, so nothing too aggressive, which is probably a good balance between reducing drag, giving enough aerodynamic downforce, but also good at cruising. Now, of course, compared to the massive wing on the Type R FK8, this is very subtle. You know, it doesn't attract a lot of attention, and personally, we kind of like it as well. Here's the next best thing about the FK hatchback. There's loads of space. It's pretty much a wagon. Now, you'll see here inside that there's nothing usually with older cars. You expect to see a rear strut bar, a solid piece of metal. While it obviously contributes to body rigidity, but you can't use these marvelous fold-down seats and go shopping and carrying big stuff. So how do they increase body rigidity? Well, it's time for new technology, and this is something called the motion control beam. Now, basically, this is a hydraulic damper, and you can see here with their control valves. It is attached to inside the bumper, so it's right inside here, right above the reinforcement and crash beam inside the bumper. The front, there is also one which is underneath. Maybe we can see that. Hang on. This little beam is right here. So how does this work? Why is it not a solid bar? So why use a damper? Why not just use a traditional solid bar beam? Well, the working principle of a strut bar is that when the car corners, you have both sides of the struts, both sides of the body connected, and the load coming from one wheel is transferred and shared equally on the other side, so there's no flex in the body and therefore keeping the suspension geometry. But when you're on a straight road, just going on bumps and all these road undulations, you don't actually need that extra stiffness. In fact, it'll contribute to a lot of ride height. So these dampers actually work by compressing the forces when the car is going on a straight road. But this could be the best compromise between ride comfort and also body stiffness. The only drawback to this is price and maybe a little bit of weight, but such as the new technologies that are being developed. In fact, Subaru, I believe have also were the first to use that, working in conjunction with Yamaha for their GDP SDIs. So now it's quite interesting to see how traditional tuners like Spoon have also developed these parts. Another thing that we cannot see, but it's right here in the catalog, is this body reinforcement stiff front plate. And this is something that only Spoon has developed with a lot of engineering work and working together with Honda's OEM manufacturers. Basically, it's a lightweight but very stiff press plate that goes underneath the front subframe and stiffens it. It's quite different from just having like heavy steel or aluminium bars that go underneath the car and it bolts onto the subframe. The disadvantage of having that is that it lowers the ground clearance of the car and therefore might affect it when you go over bumps. This is a more clever and sophisticated solution by putting a thin but stiff plate that doesn't compromise the ride height. So very, very interesting. Of course, if you add the Spoon rigid collars, which is said to center and align the suspension subframe and the body as well, and all these other little parts here, like the brake hoses, you have the blue mirrors, sports blade. How much does this cost? We're going to have a look. Now in the interior, it's basically still the same as a normal FK7, nothing fancy here. But what's interesting is that Spoon has decided to pretty much use the same steering wheel, Momo Monte Carlo, I believe, that they've always used, and the same plastic shift knob, which it depends on what you like, the shape. Personally, I think the round shape is a little better, but this is a lot lighter, and some people like that kind of feel. And you have here the Horn Data Flash Pro, which is just put here on the demo car, just to show you that they have these parts. But most interestingly is this new generation bucket seat. Now let's have a closer look at this. Priced at 150,000 Japanese yen. Now priced at 1,700 with the rails included. You get quite a good bargain. Now I'm going to sit in it. Compared to the old seats, which you can see from the previous video that I set in the SIR race car, this new generation seat is much more comfortable and fits a taller person like me. You have the headrest at a nice height. There's enough shoulder support, of course. And more importantly, it's not as tight as the Recaro RSGs, which I like in a street car, as it gives me a lot of wiggle room. And the most interesting thing is, let's have a look at the back. It's made of carbon Kevlar. So for that price, you can get a carbon Kevlar seat. It's really cool. It's extremely cool. So if I peel off these covers here, it's all just glued in, but never mind. I'm just going to show you that this construction of the seat is actually carbon Kevlar. Wow. Now the total weight of this is something maybe below 6 kilos, so it's not as light as Recaro's ones, but then the Recaro carbon Kevlar seats or the carbon fiber seats are more than twice the price of this. So this actually feels a little bit like a cross between the Bride seats or Brito seats and Recaro's pole position. If you are a Spoon fan and you must have a JDM Spoon seat, is specific for your Honda, they have these ones on sale now, and it's really cool. It's a good performance bargain. I'm personally going to think of putting it in my next EK9 for sure.
Next EK9?
My next EK9, the Club Sport one. Now obviously this is the demo car, and so they've put basically the entire catalog plus the turbocharger and little bits like the wipers, not including the stickers of course, into a base Civic hatchback 1.5 that is 2.7 million yen in Japan. How much does this come up to? So if you were to put everything in this catalog, only the parts would be 2.4 million yen, which is 24,000 US dollars. Is that right? Right now, I'm not sure about the exchange rate, but that's quite a lot. Maybe some of you might not want to go all the way. Why? Because with that extra money, you can buy that. You can buy a stock FK8, but really they're two different cars. Driving this has more raw and visceral feeling. It does feel a lot like the old EGs and EKs where you have the front that's powering around with a strong LSD. Oh, did I forget to mention there's also a mechanical LSD inside which helps it to turn much more agile than the FK8. Now the FK8, with all Type Rs since the EK9's inception, has always been about stability, and it's not acting like a typical front-wheel drive car. But if you want that raw front-wheel drive feel with a lot of power, but also good poise and balance, this could be a more interesting and fun solution. But you don't need to spend 2.4 million yen for this. We've worked it out for you. Back to here. These are the suggested parts that you need to get from Spoon if you were to do their menu, and a total price of maybe about 7,500 US dollars. Obviously the radiator you can use and stuff of your own, but everything else should come as a set in order to get this horsepower. It's not too bad, I think, and you can turn your humble family saloon or hatchback into quite a performance car. So thanks guys for watching. That was a review of the Spoon Sports Civic hatchback FK7, and if you'd like us to review the FK8 over there, and also maybe the S660, or maybe even this one, the more sedate CVT saloon here or anything other, we can always come back here. Let us know in the comments or check out also our Instagram, communicate with us, talk to us, and let us know what you think. And thanks for watching. Till you next time, peace out.